The early morning sun painted streaks of gold across the glass walls of Jack Russell's 27th floor office. The seasoned journalist, with his salt and pepper hair and weathered face, took a sip of his lukewarm coffee and grimaced. Another day, another deluge of emails. As he scrolled through the usual press releases and spam, a flutter of white caught his eye. A single moth, delicate and seemingly harmless, drifted through the open window. Jack barely paid it any mind until a second joined the first. Then a third, then a dozen. They spiraled around him, their wings beating silently against the hum of the air conditioner. One of the moths landed on his hand, its spindly legs tickling his skin. Jack brushed it away with a chuckle, but as he did, he felt a sharp, stinging pain. He looked down to see a tiny drop of blood welling up on his finger where the moth had been. "What the hell?" he muttered, shaking his hand. More moths began to land on him, each sting more painful than the last. Panic rising, Jack leapt from his chair, swatting at the air around him. But the moths seemed to vanish as quickly as they appeared, only to rematerialize a moment later in a different spot. His heart pounded in his chest as he stumbled back towards the window, the room spinning around him. The moths swarmed around him, their buzzing growing louder, their stings more intense. A wave of nausea washed over him, and his vision blurred. He reached for the window frame, desperately trying to steady himself, but it was too late. His legs gave way, and he pitched forward, tumbling over the balcony railing. Detective Sarah Morrison, a petite woman with piercing blue eyes, watched the security footage with a growing sense of unease. The video showed Jack frantically swatting at invisible attackers before falling to his death. "No moths, no birds, nothing," she muttered to herself. "Just thin air." She rewound the footage, examining it frame by frame. Jack's expression, his panicked movements. It was as if he were fighting for his life against an unseen enemy. Sam rubbed her temples, a familiar headache throbbing behind her eyes. This case was going to be a tough one. She reached for her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Mark, it's Sam," she said when the call connected. "I need your help on a case." The door creaked open, and a tall, lean figure stepped into the precinct house. Marc Daniels, his face etched with the lines of a man who had seen too much, had a dark, tousled mane and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. A past riddled with undercover ops and brushes with the fringes of legality had honed his instincts and made him a master of sniffing out secrets, no matter how deeply buried. Sam briefed him on the case, showing him the security footage and explaining the lack of any physical evidence. "Invisible attackers?" Mark raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like something out of an X-Files episode." "Tell me about it," Sam sighed. "But there's something seriously strange going on here. I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg." Mark leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the screen as the footage replayed. "Tell me everything you know about Jack Russell," he said. "Who he was, what he was working on. I have a feeling his death might not have been as random as it seems." The two friends settled in for a long night, their investigation taking them into a world of cutting-edge technology, corporate espionage, and a terrifying conspiracy that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality. The truth, they would soon discover, was far more sinister than they could have ever imagined. Sam's detective work was meticulous, a honed instinct built from years on the force. She dug through Jack's files, phone records, and online activity. Meanwhile, Mark's experience in uncovering hidden truths led him down a rabbit hole of conspiracy forums and encrypted message boards. It wasn't long before a chilling pattern emerged. 3 cases in the last 6 months, Sam announced, her fingers tracing the lines connecting photos on her whiteboard. All high profile, all sudden deaths attributed to bizarre accidents or suicides. "All men in their prime," Mark added, his eyes scanning the news clippings scattered across Sam's desk. A tech CEO, a venture capitalist, and a leading neuroscientist, each one at the top of their game. And each one Sam continued, a cold shiver running down her spine, reportedly experiencing hallucinations of insects before their deaths. Mark's eyes narrowed. Hallucinations? Like Jack and his moths? Sam nodded. The CEO saw a swarm of bees, the VC claimed to be attacked by spiders, and the neuroscientist, locusts. Each case dismissed as stress-induced paranoia. But we know better, Mark said, a grim determination settling on his face. Jack's death wasn't a suicide, it was murder. The connection between the victims was elusive at first, a tangled web of professional relationships and social circles. But as they delved deeper, a single thread emerged, leading them to the doorstep of Neuronix, cutting-edge tech company at the forefront of neural interface technology. Neuronix, Mark read aloud from his tablet, his brow furrowed. Specializing in brain-computer interfaces, neural implants, that sort of thing. Jack was investigating them, Sam said, her voice barely a whisper. He was convinced they were involved in something shady, but he never told me what. The pieces were falling into place, forming a disturbing picture. Neuronix, with its secretive research and powerful technology, had the means to manipulate minds. But why? And who was pulling the strings? Under the guise of freelance journalists interested in the company's innovative work, Mark and Sam managed to secure a meeting with Dr. Evelyn Chen, Neuronix's enigmatic CEO. The meeting took place in Chen's sleek, minimalist office, the walls lined with awards and patents. Chen herself was a striking figure, with sharp features and a piercing gaze that seemed to bore into their souls. "So, Mr. Daniels, Miss Morrison," Chen began, her voice smooth and calculated. "What brings two esteemed journalists to Neuronix's?" Mark and Sam exchanged a subtle glance, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had entered the lion's den, and they knew they had to tread carefully. "We're interested in your work with neural interfaces," Mark said, feigning casual curiosity. "It's truly groundbreaking stuff." Chen smiled, a predator baring its teeth. "Indeed it is. We believe our technology has the potential to revolutionize the way we interact with the world, to unlock the full potential of the human mind." Sam's eyes narrowed. "But every new technology comes with risks, wouldn't you agree, Dr. Chen?" Chen's smile faltered for a moment, a flicker of unease crossing her face, but she quickly recovered, her voice regaining its confident tone. "Of course, Miss Morrison," she replied, "but we take every precaution to ensure the safety and well-being of our subjects. Our technology is rigorously tested and adheres to the highest ethical standards." Mark leaned forward, his eyes boring into Chen's. "What about the rumors, Dr. Chen? The whispers of unauthorized experiments, of mind control?" Chen's face hardened, her smile vanishing completely. "Rumors are just that, Mr. Daniels. Nothing more than idle gossip spread by those who fear progress." The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Mark and Sam knew they had hit a nerve, but they also knew they were walking a dangerous tightrope. One wrong move could expose their true intentions and put their lives at risk. As they left Neuronix's headquarters, a sense of foreboding washed over them. They had barely scratched the surface of the conspiracy, and already they were in over their heads. The question was, could they unravel the truth before it was too late? The answer, they knew, could mean the difference between life and death. With their suspicions piqued, Mark and Sam donned the masks of eager investors, leveraging Mark's financial contacts to secure an exclusive tour of Neuronix's sprawling research facility nestled in the heart of Silicon Valley. Under the guise of due diligence, they navigated the labyrinthine corridors, their eyes darting behind every sleek, sterile corner. The facility was a technological marvel, a testament to human ingenuity pushed to its limits. Rows of humming servers lined the walls, their blinking lights casting an eerie glow on the faces of the scientists hunched over their workstations. Sam, with her sharp detective's eye, noticed subtle anomalies, a security camera hastily repositioned, a door left slightly ajar. A whispered conversation abruptly silenced as they approached. It was as if the entire facility was holding its breath, concealing a secret. Their guide, a young, ambitious executive named Ryan, extolled the virtues of Neuronix's groundbreaking work, showcasing prototypes of neural implants and brain mapping devices. But Mark and Sam were more interested in what lay beneath the surface, the hidden truths that Ryan was carefully avoiding. A chance encounter in a dimly lit hallway provided their breakthrough. A woman, her face etched with worry, brushed past them, clutching a worn leather satchel. Her eyes met Sam's for a fleeting moment, a silent plea for help flashing across her face. Mark and Sam followed her discreetly, their hearts pounding with anticipation. They trailed her to a secluded lab, its door marked with a cryptic symbol, a stylized moth with outstretched wings. Inside, they found Dr. Emily Collins, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. She was a brilliant neuroscientist, once hailed as a rising star in the field, now a prisoner of her own conscience. In hushed tones, she revealed the truth behind Neuronix's sinister project, the Illusion Protocol. It was a weaponized mind control system funded by a shadowy government agency designed to manipulate perception and induce targeted hallucinations. The white moths that had plagued Jack and the other victims were merely a delivery mechanism, carrying microscopic nanobots that invaded the brain and rewired neural pathways. "They're using us as guinea pigs," Dr. Collins whispered, her voice trembling with anger. "They believe they can control the world by controlling our minds." She handed them a flash drive containing classified documents detailing the Illusion Protocol's development, devastating potential, and the names of those involved. "You have to expose them," she pleaded. "The world needs to know the truth." As they left the lab, a chilling realization dawned on them. They were no longer just journalists chasing a story. They were now targets, marked for elimination by a powerful and ruthless enemy. The stakes had never been higher, the danger never more real. Their investigation had transformed into a fight for survival, a race against time to expose the truth and prevent the Illusion Protocol from falling into the wrong hands. But as they ventured deeper into the conspiracy, they would soon discover that the lines between reality and illusion were blurring, and the enemy was closer than they could have ever imagined. The air crackled with tension as Mark, Sam, and Dr. Collins raced out of Neuronixy, their footsteps echoing in the sterile halls. They knew their window of opportunity was closing rapidly. Dr. Collins's security clearance wouldn't last long, and soon the facility would be swarming with agents. As they burst into the parking garage, a sleek black SUV screeched to a halt, its headlights momentarily blinding them. A team of men in tactical gear leaped out, their faces obscured by night vision goggles. "NSA!" one of them barked, his voice amplified by a loudspeaker. "You are surrounded. Do not resist." Mark's reflexes kicked in. He shoved Sam and Dr. Collins behind a concrete pillar, his mind racing. "We need a diversion," he hissed. "Something to buy us time." Sam, ever the quick thinker, pulled out her phone. Got it. Her fingers flew across the screen, hacking into the garage's security system. Seconds later, the lights flickered and died, plunging the garage into darkness. Mark seized the opportunity, using the cover of darkness to launch a surprise attack. He moved with the swiftness and precision of a jungle cat, taking down two agents before they could react. Sam, meanwhile, had hotwired a nearby sports car, its engine roaring to life. "Get in!" she yelled, throwing open the passenger door. Mark and Dr. Collins piled into the car, and Sam floored it, tires squealing as they sped out of the garage. Behind them, the NSA agents scrambled to regroup, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they gave chase. The pursuit was a blur of adrenaline and fear. Sam, a former race car driver, pushed the car to its limits, weaving through traffic and narrowly avoiding collisions. Mark, armed with nothing but his wits and a few improvised weapons, fought off the pursuing agents with a combination of martial arts and sheer desperation. Their escape was aided by Dr. Collins's knowledge of the Illusion Protocol. She guided Sam through a series of back alleys and side streets, exploiting glitches in the system's geolocation algorithms to create phantom signals that led the agents astray. At one point, they found themselves cornered in a dead-end alley. The agents closed in, their weapons drawn. Just when all seemed lost, Dr. Collins whispered a command into her earpiece, activating a hidden feature of the nanobots in their bodies. The agents froze, their eyes wide with confusion as the alleyway transformed before them. Buildings morphed into towering trees, the pavement crumbled into dirt, and the city soundscape was replaced by the chirping of birds. Sam slammed the car into reverse, backing out of the alley as the agents stumbled around, their minds lost in the illusory forest. They continued their desperate flight, crossing state lines and disappearing into the vast American landscape. They sought refuge in abandoned motels, disguised themselves as tourists, and even hijacked a delivery truck to throw their pursuers off their trail. Along the way, they hacked into government databases, gathering evidence of the Illusion Protocol's existence and the extent of the conspiracy. They learned that the project was far more advanced than they had initially thought, with the potential to control entire populations and manipulate global events. The revelation filled them with a sense of urgency and dread. They knew they had to expose the truth before it was too late, before the Illusion Protocol became an unstoppable force. But with each passing mile, the noose tightened around them, and the line between reality and illusion grew increasingly blurred. The chase was far from over, but one thing was clear: their lives would never be the same again. After weeks on the run, surviving on adrenaline and sheer will, the trio found refuge in a secluded cabin in the remote wilderness of Montana. Dr. Collins, her hands trembling, plugged the flash drive into a battered laptop. The files it contained were a Pandora's box of secrets, a damning indictment of Neuronix C and the government's clandestine operation. Mark and Sam, their faces illuminated by the laptop's flickering screen, scrolled through the documents, their expressions a mixture of horror and resolve. They had seen enough to know that the world needed to know the truth. Working tirelessly, they crafted a series of articles, carefully weaving together the evidence, corroborating witness testimonies, and highlighting the devastating implications of the Illusion Protocol. They reached out to their contacts in the media, trusted colleagues who shared their commitment to truth and justice. The articles hit the news cycle like a bombshell, their revelations sending shockwaves through the nation. Headlines screamed of government conspiracies, unethical experiments, and the weaponization of mind control. The public, already weary of government overreach and corporate malfeasance, erupted in outrage. Protests erupted in cities across the country, fueled by a growing sense of betrayal and fear. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like #ExposeNeuronix and #ResistMindControl. Politicians scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal, while Neuronix's stock price plummeted, investors fleeing in droves. The government, caught in the crosshairs of public scrutiny, launched a desperate damage control campaign. They denied any involvement in the Illusion Protocol, labeling the reports as fake news and conspiracy theories, but their denials rang hollow in the face of the mounting evidence. Meanwhile, Mark and Sam went into hiding, fearing for their lives. They knew they had made powerful enemies, and the government agents tasked with silencing them were relentless in their pursuit. But they refused to be intimidated, their determination to expose the truth stronger than ever. They continued to leak information, feeding the media with a steady stream of classified documents and insider accounts. Their revelations painted a chilling picture of a world where the government could manipulate reality itself, where the line between truth and illusion was dangerously blurred. The scandal grew, fueled by a groundswell of public anger and a growing distrust of authority. The government's credibility was in tatters, its secrets laid bare for the world to see. The Illusion Protocol had become a national nightmare, a symbol of the dangers of unchecked power and the erosion of individual liberties. As the scandal unfolded, Mark and Sam found themselves at the center of a storm, their lives forever changed by the events they had set in motion. They had become unlikely heroes, their courage and determination inspiring others to stand up for truth and justice. The battle was far from over, but they had ignited a spark of hope, a beacon of resistance against the forces of darkness. The world was watching, and the fate of the Illusion Protocol hung in the balance. The neon glow of Silicon Valley's skyline reflected in the obsidian facade of Neuronix's headquarters. A fortress of technological might, it stood as a symbol of power and ambition, a place where the lines between innovation and exploitation blurred, but tonight it was a battleground. Under the cover of darkness, Mark, Sam, and Dr. Collins approached the building, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. They were armed with the knowledge of the Illusion Protocol's inner workings, a blueprint of its vulnerabilities, and a burning desire to dismantle the insidious weapon that threatened to reshape the world. Their plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. They would infiltrate Neuronix's central server room, the heart of the Illusion Protocol's infrastructure, and trigger a self-destruct sequence, erasing all traces of the project's existence. But first, they had to bypass the building's state-of-the-art security systems and evade the watchful eyes of Agent Reynolds and his elite team of NSA operatives. Sam, a tech whiz in her own right, had hacked into Neuronix's security network, disabling alarms and cameras and creating a digital smokescreen to mask their movements. Dr. Collins, with her intimate knowledge of the building's layout, guided them through a maze of corridors and secret passages, bypassing security checkpoints and avoiding detection. As they neared the server room, the tension ratcheted up a notch. The air crackled with an unspoken threat, the silence punctuated only by the rhythmic hum of the servers and the pounding of their own hearts. Suddenly, the door to the server room slid open, revealing Agent Reynolds and his team, their weapons trained on the intruders. The air was thick with the unspoken threat of violence. "Game over," Reynolds sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "You're not getting out of here alive." A tense standoff ensued, a silent battle of wills. Mark and Sam exchanged a knowing glance, a flicker of defiance in their eyes. Then, with a synchronized burst of movement, chaos erupted. Mark launched himself at Reynolds, his fists flying in a flurry of calculated strikes. Sam, armed with a stun gun, took down two agents before they could react. Dr. Collins, meanwhile, raced towards the central console, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. The server room became a whirlwind of action, a symphony of grunts, shouts, and the clatter of weapons. Mark and Sam fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, their movements honed by years of training and instinct. Reynolds, a formidable opponent, matched Mark blow for blow, their bodies colliding in a brutal dance of aggression. Sam, outnumbered but not outmatched, used her agility and quick thinking to disarm her attackers and turn their weapons against them. As the battle raged, Dr. Collins worked feverishly at the console, her fingers a blur as she navigated the complex code of the Illusion Protocol. Time was running out, and the fate of the world hung in the balance. Suddenly, a wave of disorientation washed over the room. The lights flickered, the walls seemed to shift, and the sound of the servers morphed into a discordant symphony of electronic noise. The Illusion Protocol was fighting back, using its own mind-bending powers to disorient and confuse its attackers. Mark, his vision blurring, stumbled backward, narrowly avoiding a blow from Reynolds. Sam, her head spinning, lost her grip on her stun gun, sending it clattering across the floor. Dr. Collins, her fingers faltering on the keyboard, felt a wave of nausea wash over her. But they refused to give up. Mark, drawing on his years of experience in the shadowy world of espionage, fought through the disorientation, his senses sharpened by the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Sam, her instincts honed by a lifetime of danger, recovered her weapon and rejoined the fray. Dr. Collins, her mind reeling, focused on the task at hand. She had to finish the sequence, no matter the cost. With a final surge of effort, she hit the enter key, triggering the self-destruct protocol. A siren blared through the room, the lights flashing red as the countdown began. The Illusion Protocol was dying, its power waning with each passing second as the sirens wailed and the lights continued their frantic dance. Dr. Collins shouted over the din, her voice filled with urgency. "There's a kill switch, a way to reverse the nanobot's effects, but..." Mark and Sam, their bodies battered and bruised, exchanged a look of both hope and apprehension. "But what?" Sam asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Collins hesitated, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. "The reversal process is aggressive. It'll wipe out the hallucinations, but it might also erase their memories, their personalities. They might not be the same people when they wake up." A heavy silence descended upon the room. The ethical implications of Dr. Collins's revelation were staggering. Could they justify erasing someone's identity, even if it meant saving their life? Was it their place to play God with the minds of the victims? Mark, his brow furrowed in thought, paced the room, the weight of the decision bearing down on him. "We can't let them continue to suffer," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "But we can't just wipe the slate clean either. They have lives, families, loved ones." Sam nodded, her expression grim. "We need to find a way to minimize the damage, to give them a chance to reclaim their lives." Dr. Collins, her fingers trembling, typed a series of commands into the console. "I've modified the reversal sequence," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's less aggressive, but it'll take longer, and there's no guarantee it'll work for everyone." The three of them shared a look of silent understanding. It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to find a middle ground between saving lives and preserving identities. But it was the only chance they had. They worked together, their movements synchronized by a shared sense of purpose. Mark and Sam helped Dr. Collins secure the server room, disabling the remaining security systems and ensuring that no one could interfere with the reversal process. As they watched the countdown timer tick down, a wave of uncertainty washed over them. They had no idea what the outcome would be, what the consequences of their actions might be. They knew they had done everything they could, and now they could only hope for the best. The countdown reached 0, and the server room fell silent. The lights dimmed, the screens went dark, and the hum of the machines ceased. The illusion protocol was no more. But the battle was far from over. The victims of the mind control experiment were still out there, trapped in a world of hallucinations and paranoia. Mark, Sam, and Dr. Collins knew they had a long road ahead of them, a journey fraught with uncertainty and danger. But they were determined to see it through, to help the victims reclaim their lives and their identities, to ensure that the horrors of the illusion protocol were never repeated. As they stepped out of Neuronix's headquarters into the cool night air, they couldn't help but feel a sense of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness. They had made a difference, they had exposed the truth, and they had given the victims a fighting chance. The road ahead was uncertain, but they knew they weren't alone. The world was watching, and the fight for justice had only just begun. The aftermath of the Neuronix's raid was a whirlwind of activity. The news of the illusion protocol's destruction and the subsequent exposure of the government's involvement sent shockwaves through the nation and the world. Public outrage reached a fever pitch, leading to congressional hearings, criminal investigations, and a widespread re-evaluation of the ethics of scientific research and technological development. Neuronix, once a beacon of innovation, crumbled under the weight of the scandal. Its stock price plummeted to 0, its assets seized, and its executives indicted on multiple charges of fraud, conspiracy, and human rights violations. Dr. Chen, the enigmatic CEO, disappeared without a trace, leaving behind a legacy of ambition gone astray and a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power. The government officials involved in the illusion protocol faced a similar fate. Their careers were ruined, their reputations tarnished, and their freedom lost as they were held accountable for their crimes. Agent Reynolds, stripped of his authority and facing a court-martial, vanished into the shadows, his fate uncertain. The victims of the mind control experiment, slowly recovering from their ordeals, began the long and arduous process of piecing their lives back together. Some regained their memories and identities, their minds healing with time and therapy. Others, however, were not so fortunate. The damage inflicted by the illusion protocol was too profound, leaving them with fragmented memories and altered personalities. Mark and Sam, their names now synonymous with courage and investigative journalism, used their newfound platform to advocate for stricter regulations on neural interface technology and greater transparency in government research. They became voices for the voiceless, champions of the ethical use of technology, and tireless defenders of human rights. As they watched the world grapple with the implications of the illusion protocol, they couldn't help but reflect on the power of technology and its potential for both good and evil. The line between innovation and exploitation, they realized, was a thin one, easily blurred by ambition, greed, and the thirst for power. The illusion protocol, though dismantled, had left a lasting scar on their minds, a reminder of the fragility of human consciousness and the dangers of unchecked scientific advancement. It had forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of reality, the ethics of manipulating minds, and the boundaries of human control. The questions lingered, echoing in the quiet moments between their triumphs and their struggles. How far could technology go before it crossed the line into the realm of the unethical? What were the limits of human intervention in the delicate workings of the mind? And could society ever truly safeguard itself against those who sought to exploit technology for their own twisted ends? The answers, they knew, were elusive, perhaps even unknowable, but the questions themselves were a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity, the unyielding pursuit of truth, and the unwavering belief in the potential for good. In the end, the illusion protocol served as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, the need for ethical boundaries, and the enduring power of the human spirit to resist manipulation and control. It was a story of darkness and light, of despair and hope, of the battle between those who sought to exploit technology for their own gain and those who fought to protect the sanctity of the human mind.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Quantum Dispatches and stay tuned next week for another thrilling adventure. Thank you for listening.